In this video, you'll learn how you can use Amplitude to make better and faster product decisions within your organization. I have helped over 80 organizations use tools like Amplitude, and I want to show you the 5 most popular reports within the product itself. Let's jump right in. So number 1 is the segmentation. So if we look here to my right, this is in my opinion, the most versatile and sort of most used report because you can do lots of it. It's a lot of ad hoc questions you can answer very rapidly. For example, this is a demo account here in Amplitude, and specifically, it's a streaming analytics product similar to Spotify. So we're going to see lots of events around songs and videos and purchases and things like that. So you keep that in mind as you look at all the data here. So let's imagine that we want to look at how many songs or videos were played over the last 30 days. We take our event, we plug it in, and right away we get this breakdown and this trend chart, this line chart, that's showing us the numbers. Now, in this case, we're looking at uniques, so it's showing us how many unique users played a song or a video on, let's say, September 16th, which is 245,000. But we can also look at the event totals, and we can see that we're actually about 1 million events, 1 million songs played or videos played on September 16th. We can, of course, change this and make it 60 days or make it 90 days. You know, the demo data is sometimes a little bit too perfect. So we can see this very clear pattern where there's high usage over the week, and then there's a drop over the weekend, and then goes back and forth in a very, very identical manner. We can also do breakdowns. So we can look at, let's say, the genres and take all the same data and then break it up by genre, but perhaps we need to change the chart. Let's try a horizontal bar. And now we get genres of pop, rock, EDM, and we see the total number of songs played or videos played over the last 90 days. This is absolute numbers. And of course, we can do relative numbers. So we can see which genre is the most popular. We can also do that with content type. So we can maybe do the breakdown between song and video. And of course, we can then filter down and say we only want to look at songs or we only want to look at videos. We can continue adding breakdowns. So perhaps we want to now see all this data by country. And then we get the song video breakdown, and we get the country breakdown right next to it. And again, absolute, relative numbers, and so on, different chart types. Depending on the chart type itself, you can do comparisons to previous day, previous week, and so forth. So right away, right, there's a lot of different ways to slice the data, but the key thing to keep in mind here is all of this is happening within seconds, right? The building of the charts, in my experience, in my work, tends to be very quick. So people might have very varying levels of questions, and they don't need a full dashboard. They don't need a full explanation. They just need one chart, a single link that can answer the question right away. So if you have the building blocks in Amplitude, that is, you have the right events, the right event properties, and the right user properties, then you can quickly combine them in different permutations to answer all kinds of questions very rapidly. It doesn't have to go through a data analyst or a developer. It has to go some kind of building of a report. It can all happen very quickly. So we do lots of breakdowns. We can do filters. We can add multiple events here to combine things. There's, of course, other formulas like averages and frequencies. We can sum event properties themselves. So for example, you may have a purchase event, and the purchase event may have a property that contains the revenue for that specific event. So you can do a sum of that revenue, so you can get a total amount of revenue that was generated over a specific time period, and a few other segmentations. So there's this initial steps, kind of what we saw here, very easy to get started, to add things and filters into breakdowns, but there is some depth if you want to go even deeper and you want to use more advanced formulas than maybe just available at a glance here. So this makes this report a fantastic report to learn and to use and then to eventually master, because there's a lot you can do with it. Now, once you're happy with the report and you want to show it, for example, we may want to send this report to someone in the product team who's curious about that geographic breakdown of songs and videos. We can then either click this link here or this button here, and this just copies the link of the URL in Amplitude, so you can send it to someone and they can open it on their own account. We can, of course, share with them almost like you're sharing a document, like on Google Drive or Microsoft Teams. You can add it to a dashboard, so there's a central place where it can be shared, and a couple other ways, right? We can then, of course, export some data or do a couple other things with it. So very versatile, very easy to use. Your first starting point and how to use Amplitude and be able to turn all these data points into something that's actionable. Number 2 are funnels. Now, funnels are fantastic for looking at a series of events within your product. For example, you may have an onboarding flow of 3, 4, 5 steps, and you want to understand where users are dropping off in that onboarding funnel. You may have a checkout funnel, like an e-commerce store where users view an item, they add it to cart, they start the checkout, and then they complete the checkout by entering their payment information. So the funnel allows you to look at all those steps and see the drop-offs between them. So let's build a quick funnel here. And let's start with the user sign-up. And then let's add play song or video, which we saw earlier. And then let's make a purchase event. So let's assume that this is a somewhat of an onboarding funnel, right? We want to see how many users signed up. And of those users, how many then go on to play a song or video? And of those users, how many go and purchase that same song or video? Now, this is a broad funnel, and right away we can see, there's a 30% drop off in step 2, and there's about 84 drop off in step 3 from step 2. Once again, lots of things we can do here. We can do some filters or group bys we saw before. So for example, we may want to do the same group by country, just in case we're interested. And we see the same breakdown, but now it's done by country. So we can see specific countries and their specific conversion rates, which in this demo data doesn't seem to be anything different. In your data, you might find some interesting segments that they may perform at a higher rate than not. A very common segment here in the funnels tends to be marketing attribution. So if we look at UTM parameters like UTM source, UTM medium, and trying to use those to understand the performance of users through a funnel. Let's remove country for now. Down here, we can see, of course, the conversion rate. So this funnel has a total conversion rate of 16%. We can see a conversion rate over time. So how is that 60% changing over time? Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it consistent? We can see a time to convert, which is kind of interesting. You may not know, for example, what is the ideal window for a funnel. Imagine a subscription product that has a 14-day trial. Should they maintain the 14 days, or can they make it perhaps 7 days or 10 days and make that shorter to drive more users into a paid subscription faster? So this time we have a conversion window here that's completed within. So we can actually make this whatever. We can make this days, hours, minutes. So perhaps let's make it 7 days. And then we see the breakdown here. And it seems like, the median is here, right? The median conversion time is 1 day and 8 hours. So perhaps, having a 3-day window, maybe a 2-day window kind of makes sense. So we come back here, and now we know that for this funnel, a conversion window of perhaps 3 days might make the most sense. And from there, we can see the time to convert at each of those different buckets or levels. We can do the segmentations as before. And let's go back to conversion. So again, very fast way to build funnels. I love this idea because just like before, we can sort of build and destroy the funnels as we need to. So we can take different segments of products and analyze them in different ways and say, hey, if we put these 3 steps together, what does it look like? If we change the order of steps, if we make the order of steps much more rigid, so they have to go through the steps and nothing else. Lots of different variations and sort of permutations we can look at when it comes to funnels to understand where users are dropping off and where we might need to put more resources to get those conversion rates higher. Number 3 is retention. Retention is really fantastic for understanding if users are actually sticking around over the long term. Now, this report invariably will need time to collect data. So while segmentation and funnels may be available within a few days of you implementing Amplitude, retention might take weeks or months before it actually shows you anything useful. So keep that in mind. Nonetheless, let's make something very simple here. Let's imagine that we have our initial event will be a user sign up. So we want to understand how new users are retained. And then a return event, let's make it a play song or video event. So we're effectively saying, of all the users who sign up, how many of them come back and actually play a song or video? Now, this is a consumer product or a consumer demo data. So typically the way we talk about retention in this world is using the DX. So we might have a D1 or D7 or D30th. And we're saying on day 1, what is the retention rate? On day 7th or day 30th and so forth. So by default, Amplitude kind of gives us this. So we have a daily breakdown over the last 90 days. And we can see actually, so this will be day 1 retention, 78%. We can go down here and we can go find wherever day 7 is, 69%. And day 30th is here at 44%. So we get the sort of the different breakdowns. Down below, we get a more detailed look at what the data looks like. So on every given day, Amplitude is grouping users based on that user sign-up event. And this simply means that on July 16th, there were 1,400 users who signed up, effectively new users. And then of that specific cohort, what is the retention rate over that specific, over any given day? We can, of course, make this weekly or monthly. Some products don't use daily retention. You can imagine like a B2B product, which may use a weekly or monthly retention, maybe even seasonal. Think of like tax software that has heavy usage during one period and low usage during the rest of the year. And again, there's lots of different ways to kind of slice and dice this, different ways to tweak the formula, depending on what kind of retention you want to look at. Of course, we can do some slicing at the event level itself to only look at, let's say, specific countries or specific genres or specific users. We can do segmentation and so forth, right? So once again, we have this high level report that out of the box tends to be pretty useful, but we can then add our own tweaks to make it much more customizable and to match the way we think about our own product within our own organization. Number 4 are journeys. Now, journeys are similar to funnels, except that we don't know the exact steps that users are taking. So a very common use case here might be you have your onboarding funnel, and you can use the funnels report to look at that because you have very specific steps that you know, and you can see the drop-offs. But once they finish that, where do they go? Are they actually taking the actions that you want them to take once they are done onboarding? So journeys is fantastic. It's really an exploration of the different paths or journeys that users take within your product to get to specific actions. So let's look at here. So we may have a starting event, the initial event, or we may have an ending event. You can imagine that you may have, let's say, a purchase event, and you want to understand how users got to that specific purchase event, what steps they took to get there. So let's do a starting event, and let's take user sign up. We're going to add more steps, so we can see about 5 steps after the initial one. And the thing about journeys is you really have to filter down to remove all the noise, so to speak, all the stuff that we don't really care about. I don't really care about this welcome event in particular, so I'm gonna hide it. Let me see. Okay. Great. Let me re-add the steps. So we get something like this. So we can see that users sign up, about 23% then go and search for a song. We see this sign up again here, which again, this is a little bit funky for the data. This might be just reference to the demo data itself. Then we have another 17% of who select a video and an edit profile and so forth. And then we can kind of go down to specific path or journey and try to figure it out. Kind of Amplitude gives you this quick funnel built, in between steps. So you can see some conversion rates from step to step. You can, of course, create funnels, create cohorts or things like that. So from here, again, lots of different ways. We can do group buys. We can kind of break things out or filter things out. But generally, what we're trying to get here is a path that's been sort of filtered down and worked through to say, here's where users start, and here are the 4 or 5 steps after they start, and where they're taken to those 4 or 5 steps. Or here's the goal event, the ending event that we care, and here are the 4 or 5 steps that users took to get there. But again, we kind of do the filtering. We kind of go around. There's a couple of things here. We might have a journey map that may be a little bit easier to read, and then we tend to have top user paths to again see this. So this is journeys. Really great reports for the exploration, especially if you're sort of trying to dig to understand how users are actually engaging with the product and you're not quite sure of the specific steps. Once you know the steps, then you can go to funnels or somewhere else and kind of make them a little bit more rigid and play around with them in a slightly different way. And lastly, I want to show you Lifecycle. I really like this report for a few reasons. Now, we can actually find this here. We have a lot of reports. We saw a few here. And we have some actually additional chart types like personas and stickiness and compass and so on. Amplitude historically has had several reports that use machine learning, or I guess today we might even call it AI. And they're really quite good, especially if you have enough data. But I want to focus on Lifecycle within our limited time here. And Lifecycle is Amplitude's report for their own retention framework. So you can actually Google this. If you Google Amplitude Lifecycle, they have a PDF or a playbook that they wrote about retention. And what I really like is that it's an entire framework for how to think about your users in 4 categories. So if we go down here, we have new users, current, resurrected, and dormant. So new users, as the name implies, are users that are new to your product. Current users are users that are currently active. Now, the active definition depends on what you define here. It could be any event, which is a little bit too broad, in my opinion. We ideally want to find the core value proposition of the product. So if you have a food delivery app, the core value proposition for an end user is being able to order food. If you have a meditation app, it's to go through a meditation. It might be some kind of like meditation timer. In this case, we have a Spotify-like product. So let's say that our core value proposition is users playing songs or videos, whether they're sort of trying to preview it or play the entire song. So current users are those users that have done this action. And over here, what we see is if we have a 90-day timeline, then we have an interval of 7 days. So every 7 days, there's a new interval. So this column here, right, this is the July 23rd to July 29 interval. And then this one is the July 30th to August 5th and so forth. And you can change the interval. And the interval kind of aligns with perhaps your retention length. So whether you might be thinking of an interval of, let's say, 1 day or 7 days or 30 days, or even longer, right? If you want to look at, let's say, calendar weeks or calendar months, it depends what kind of frequency you expect your users to be engaging in that core value proposition. Resurrected users are users that were dormant in the previous period and now they're active. So dormant users are, of course, users that did not fire the specific events you listed for the criteria here. So we can say that these dormant users are users that did not play a song or video in the period that we're referencing. And when they're resurrected, they were dormant previously and now they're active, or now they're current, actually would be the right word to think about it. So I think this is very cool because it's I know many teams don't have any kind of framework. They might know of new users and maybe active users, but even the active users is just not that well defined. So this gives you a complete framework. You may not like it, and that's okay. But if you are looking for a framework, if you want some structure, this is a nice way to think about it. I think it gives you 4 categories, and then right away you can start to think of different strategies for each category. New users may need to be guided to give an education. Current users perhaps need to be taken into power users. You might start to think about this sort of 5th category. Dormant users, of course, need to be reactivated to be brought back into the product. And resurrector users need to be sort of maintained and re-engaged to become more like current users. So this kind of like 4 groups can then take it down in different paths and perhaps different focuses depending on where your product is. So like this report, a lot of the same filters that we have available before are here, where we can filter by countries or regions. Some breakdowns are not quite here, but we do have some of the data available that we saw earlier. And again, we have a couple of ways of looking at it. Actually, this polls metric is interesting. Polls basically uses a formula that takes the number of new users plus the number of resurrected users, and it divides the number of dormant users. You can find this online. Don't worry if you don't quite get it. But it takes the groups themselves and it gives you a number. Now, broadly speaking, if your polls is over 1, it means you're gaining users faster than you're losing them. That is, you're experiencing some kind of growth. And if your polls is under 1, you're losing more users than you're gaining. Again, maybe a little simplistic, but the simplicity or the basicness of it means that it can be a starting point for how to think about your product. Again, some companies don't really have a good idea. Are we actually doing well? Are we acquiring enough users and then maintaining them over the long run? Or are we just kind of bringing users into this kind of very leaky bucket? So this pulse metric gives you this one simple number, and you can see that, on this week's, for example, they were gaining more users, but on this week, they're actually losing more users than they're gaining. And if we're able to take this out over 6 months, 12 months, then we can kind of get a sense of the trend. Are we always over 1, under 1? Is it going down? Is it going up? Whatever that is. So very interesting report. It may not be available in all the pricing plans, so you want to double check that. But again, I like this pre-built framework for companies that don't have a framework. It gives them a way to think about it. And over time, they may tweak this, they may rename the labels, they may add groups or remove groups and kind of make it their own, but it's a good starting point nonetheless. And that is everything for this video. This is a short demo of Amplitude and how you can use it to make better and faster decisions within your organization. We looked at segmentation. This is the universal, most versatile report in Amplitude funnels for understanding a series of rigid steps, retention to understand if users are sticking around over the long term, journeys for when you don't know the actual steps, you want to explore the different possibilities, and Lifecycle, one of my favorite reports, just because it gives you this pre-built retention framework for how to understand your product. Now, a few things before you go. If you are looking for help implementing Amplitude among other tools in your data stack, check out my website at rubenyugarte.com. Link in the description. And I typically work with a handful of companies every year, and I help them take tools like Amplitude and really get the most out of those tools. It's a couple ways I do this. So check out the website whether you need help implementing Amplitude or you already have Amplitude and you want to get more data out of it. That is, you want to get really Amplitude adopted with your team and make it a part of your regular workflow. So I'm able to help with both. So check that out. Number two, if you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. In the comment section below, I would love to hear your questions or comments. I'll do my best to answer them. And number three, there's a link to my book, The Data Mirage, Why Companies Fail to Actually Use Their Data. I think this is a fantastic book that takes you through a lot of the work I've done with companies over now 10 years and 80 plus companies to understand how data stacks are defined, how you can optimize it, how you can implement them, how you can maintain data quality, how you can extract insights, build reports and dashboards. Overall, very popular book, and it's sold everywhere books are available. Amazon, Chapters, Barnes & Nobles, and so forth. That's all I have for today. My name is Ruben Ugarte. We'll talk next week.